Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Homegrown Academy sessions powered by C by HP and Intel. We're really excited to have a lot of you join in right now, and I hope more people join in the next few minutes. But just to set the context, Homegrown Academy is our focus of bringing India's leading creators, innovators, designers, and many other people across various backgrounds for you to learn from, get deeper insights of what goes on behind the scenes, and learn to better your craft, and no matter whatever your background is and where you want to go. We're really excited for the first session that Intel and Z by HP are enabling this because they have some incredible products that will make sure that no matter how big your idea, the product will enable for you to bring it to life. So next, I will introduce very soon our first host. And keep in mind that we got 4 sessions in total, another one at 3 o'clock, and tomorrow 1 o'clock and 3 again. So please be part of as many as you can and learn about the diverse creative opportunities and learners that we can. Thank you. So with COVID coming in, I think what we have gotten a chance to understand is that our cities are an essential part of everything that we need to pay attention to. Our leaders have had no place necessarily to hide, but what we have realized is that citizens, spaces, and creators are essential in today's time for us to find innovation and to save our community. Creative centers, creative cities are driven by innovation and creativity coming together. And those happen in spaces what we see as maker spaces. One such introduction that I'd like to do is of Richa Srivastava. She's the managing partner at Asylum, which is an essential part of India. It's a maker space that's been instrumental in finding and giving opportunities of learning in different capacities. They have broken down the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and made it accessible for you to learn on how do we bring the change for the goals of 2030. They have been instrumental in giving a platform for many young creators to learn and sign up and do many things at. But one of the most important pieces that they did was at the time of COVID, they mobilized more than 1 million face shields by working with multiple maker spaces from across the country to help our frontline workers and many others. So without further ado, I'd love for Richa to take over and take you through why maker spaces, why innovation and creativity are essential for the growth of our city. Thank you. Another quick thing to add, you guys in the stream that you're watching, there is a Q&A drop-down button on your right side. If you have any questions, please do drop them in there. After her session, we're going to do a quick introduction about the HP products, and then we'll take this Q&A ahead. Richa, please take over. Thank you so much.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my masterclass on how makerspaces can drive a city forward. I hope all of you can hear me really well. My name is Richa, and I'm the managing partner for Makers Asylum, which is a community makerspace. Was earlier based out of Mumbai, Delhi, and a few other parts in India, but recently we've moved to Goa. I'm going to quickly share my screen and take you through my presentation. That's me, a little bit of background about myself. I'm an engineer by academic training. I did my engineering in electronics and communication back in 2010. And post that, I've been doing various things around technology and strategy. So my first job was with the telecommunication sector. I worked for about 5 years with Idea Cellular as part of Aditya Birla Group in technology strategy. Then I also wanted to sort of hone my business skills. So I went to Indian School of Business, where I did marketing and leadership as my primary courses. And post that, I was working for the government of Andhra Pradesh for about 2.5 years, where I was driving in technology investments into the state. So my role primarily looked after promotions of driving startup innovation around the areas of fintech and blockchain in the state of Andhra Pradesh. And post that, I recently, about 2.5 years ago, started working with Vaibhav, who's the founder of Makers Asylum. And he was looking for someone who could sort of drive more strategic and financial sustainability into spaces like maker spaces. And I was looking for something very exciting at that point in time. Incidentally, we were also dating, and he's my husband now. So we've had a very complicated personal and professional life together. So, but we started working together. So I've been part of Makers Asylum for about 2.5 years now. And my role primarily focuses on how to how to make these spaces more financially sustainable. How can more strategic partnerships be brought in? How can we work with various different kinds of partners, stakeholders across board? And that's what I look into. So that's a little bit of a background about myself. So just to give you a quick insight into how Makers Asylum looks like. So this was our space in Mumbai, where this was actually, in fact, our 5th space in Mumbai. We started back in 2013, out of a garage in Bandra. So a quick little story about how it came about. Vaibhav was in Boston for a very long time, and he was working for a startup over there, which was focused on developing virtual reality eye diagnostic devices. And so he was sent to India to sort of work on this particular product and see how it could be, taken to the rural areas of India, because there was a lot of the use case for a rural community for that kind of a product was pretty exciting. So when he came down to India, because it was a hardware product, there was a lot of design iterations that it had to go through even then, because they were still prototyping, they were still in the phases of sort of development. But in India, there were no spaces where you could actually go and sort of create and make things by yourself. So, they had to sort of go to service providers, they had to sort of find people who could do it. So in the whole process of this, progression of the design and prototyping, the whole learning behind what really happens when when it's progressing was sort of missing. So the space sort of started as a personal need for Vaibhav, because a lot of these maker spaces already existed in the US. And to give you a little bit of context around what is a maker space, how did this whole maker movement sort of started back in the day? So let me take you back a little bit in history. But before that, I'll give you a little visual glimpse of how a space like this really looks like, right? So we have anywhere from, say, a metalworking shop. And it's a community space. So that means to say that anyone can access this space. So this is Priyank, who's a member of our community, and he's a great metal artist. So you can see him sort of working on his table, which is a very beautiful table. And that's a metal shop that we have. So a lot of equipment around metal work. You can see at the space, you can also find woodworking shops, a lot of carpentry, and woodwork that happens at the space. There's a laser cutting machine at our space. It's a really beautiful one. We call it the Death Star. But a laser cutting machine is a very versatile additive manufacturing machine where you can do a lot of things from cutting, engraving. It sort of works with a lot of material, and a lot of architects and designers sort of use it to visualize a lot of physical concepts. and things. But apart from that, a lot of artists as well use this to sort of create really beautiful art. You can see a little bit of stuff around here. You can see a little lamp here. There's some engraving done with the laser cutting machine over there. And there's an electronics lab. We work a lot with Arduinos, Raspberry Pis. These are really exciting things to sort of create and design prototypes. And we also, of course, have a lovely community space where we hang out, get to know each other, meet each other, share ideas, and collaborate. So that's a little bit of a visual description. And yeah, we also have our own homemade barbecue grill, which we fire up a lot of times to, you know, get really exciting conversations started. So yeah, this is visually how a space like this looks like. And to give you a little bit of history about makerspaces, so it started in about 2000 when you know, there was this whole movement around making and the maker culture that came about in the US. So the MIT Center of Bits and Atoms in Boston, they were sort of creating this foundation called the Fab Foundation that was working around proliferating the idea of having these open innovation spaces inside universities, and also possibly in open, you know, community areas as well. So they started off this whole initiative around sort of creating fabrication labs in different parts of the world. So slowly, I think over the years, a lot of fab labs have come about in different parts of the world where they look like what you know, what Makers Asylum looks like. What the whole drive with Fab Foundation was to sort of inculcate the maker culture at that point in time. And what I mean by maker culture is doing things by yourself, right? So doing it yourself, DIY. How do you sort of, you know, bring that about as a general culture for people, and how do we proliferate that? How we talk about it? So these fabrication labs were sort of units for them to, you know, talk about. And bring these makers and creators together to, you know, sort of do things that really matter to them and drive their own passion. So, and the maker culture slowly sort of took, you know, progressed over the years. And I think back when we started in India, that was the first time I think a community makerspace sort of came in about in India. There was one before that, which was in this village near Pune called Palbal. Which is you know, so that particular maker space was one of the first maker spaces as well, which is called Vigyan Ashram, which was there in Palbal. It's a rural maker space where they have different kinds of equipment. A lot of people come there. It's about an hour and a half away from Pune. And I think Makers Asylum was definitely the first community maker space in a city, and especially a big city like Mumbai. And that's where that's how our journey sort of started. So that's a little bit of context around the maker culture, the DIY space, and what maker spaces are. And today I'm going to talk about how these spaces really drive innovation for cities, especially through one of the initiatives that I'm going to speak about today is what we did during the COVID time, and how a space like this one was there, and how it could really fuel innovation in a very, very you know, interesting way, and also sort of in a very fast manner. So I'm gonna move ahead and show you a little bit more about what happens at the space, so it gives you a little bit more insight around, you know, what you can do as well. So a lot of our members really work around, you know, installations, physical art, and installations. We were doing this is something that we had done for the Make in India event. There's also really collaborative projects that come out of it. Like, for example, we host a lot of programs where we bring in interdisciplinary groups together. I'm going to talk about how we sort of foster this culture of interdiscipline, age agnostic collaboration between different kind of people, because generally what, you know, traditionally when we think about you know, innovation, we think about ideas and how they can progress. But when you put innovation in a very open and experimental playground, like, you know, a makerspace, a lot more can happen, and I'm going to talk about that later. But this is something that we do when we bring in, this particular project is part of our program called STEAM Fabricarium, where we bring in differently able community to work with temporarily able community like us, like designers, artists, engineers, to work together on solving their problem and involve them in the process of solving. So, things like this can also happen. This is a satellite ground station that we have. It's an open source satellite ground station where the members are working on, which is really fascinating for me every time that I look at it, because, something like this, you don't get to see this on a normal day where you're, working on a satellite ground station at an open community space, and everyone can contribute to it. Then, of course, musical instruments, you can see a lot of influence at a space is around hardware and design, and definitely a lot around sustainability. So we focus a lot on that as well. So the members and the community that is drawn to the space is also very driven by all of these elements of hardware design and sustainability. So you can see musical instruments being made. This is something that we did recently with Hindustan Unilever, where we were given a problem statement that how do we help children visualize plastic recycling, in general. And this was supposed to be something for the rural, schools where, somebody could go and show them how plastic recycling is done. So we came up with a concept, which is the plastic recycling lab, where we actually put this, if you see this whole space over here, this is a shredder extruder unit where you can actually extrude plastic. And so you can put a bottle that you don't want to use, you can put it over here, and then it shreds and it sort of extrudes over here into a thin film. And you can actually see at the back of this particular van, there is a 3D printer where you can actually put that film and create it into a new product. So it shows you a complete a circular economy of plastic, where you actually have something that you're throwing away to actually making a different product out of it. So this van has gone now to quite a lot of schools in rural areas, and also has a lot of content where we drive a lot of conversation around the circular economy of plastic, what we can do, how we can create more products, how we can upcycle, and things like that. So, and on the right, you can see that this was all being made at Makers Asylum. So it is all of us sort of got together to work on it by ourselves to create this whole van, which now is called the Plastic Recycling Van. And then, of course, we love a lot of sparks, a lot of welding. So it really makes it really fun and exciting to be at this space. So this is how things happen around here. So this is what I wanted to also speak about with respect to Makers Asylum and our spaces, and in general Maker spaces, is that in most cases, everybody focuses on two things, which is access to learning and access to tools. So when I say access to learning, that is by means of a lot of programs and engagements and workshops that we do at a space where people from different disciplines, ages can collaborate together and also learn from the space. So for example, if you want to learn, say, additive manufacturing, you want to learn about electronics, you want to learn about virtual reality, you want to learn about woodworking, you want to learn about metal craft. So anything at the intersection of hardware design is something that we focus on. A lot of it is also, skills in the new age tech space. So you can see a lot of really new things happening at the space, because the community it sort of draws a lot of early adopters as well. So we have a lot of really new open source, platforms that we work with. A lot of really exciting and creative things around, new tech. So anything exciting and new age is something that you can find at the space, because everyone's just fiddling around and sort of getting to know what's this technology, what we can do with it, how we can use it, how we can solve a problem with it. So that's what I mean when I say access to learning. And when I say access to tools, so as a physical infrastructure, you have these tools which are available in an open community environment for you to come and access it, use it, learn about them, and create things that you would not otherwise be able to do on a regular day, because you might not have access to a certain tool. Generally, it's very expensive to obviously also own these tools individually. So you can imagine the space, just like like a gym. So like a gym for tools where you can actually come and use it and share tools with each other, while at the same time get to know and meet more people who come from really exciting backgrounds to, sort of really collaborate with them. So, that's primarily what we focus on. And, but what happened was that to give you a little bit of context around what, these spaces can do in time of crisis, but in generally why these spaces are important in a city or in a town or a village, because they really drive innovation in a much faster pace. So this is something I'm going to talk about, is the M19 initiative, where we, when everything shut down in India on the 23rd of March, when we all saw the biggest national lockdown, we decided to sort of quarantine ourselves at our space. So it was me, Vaibhav, one of our other team members, Naren. We just decided that, it's going to be really boring to be at home. So why don't we just quarantine ourselves at the space, have access to the tools, and do something exciting, at the time. We did not really know what we were about to sort of, step into, but it was just from this thought that we thought that this is going to be just it will be more exciting for us to be near these tools and be at the space and do something more impactful during this time, because we really did not know what's going to happen. There was a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, we had to shut down like most businesses, and a lot of it was affected for us as well. But the space gave us a lot of motivation to be there and do things. So but so at the time when everything shut down, we were also at the space, and I actually want to mention a little bit about open source medical supplies. So open source medical supplies was a community that started just at the time of lockdown in the US, and these guys were basically trying to sort of bring all these community-led global responses together. So, and global responses together specifically around open healthcare. So what I mean by open healthcare is open source medical supplies, just like the name suggests, is basically, they're curating open source design libraries for healthcare equipments being made across the world. So this project sort of started at the same time when we were, quarantining at the space, and because as a makerspace, we believe a lot in the open source culture, in the open source movement. We were connected with all these makers across different parts of the world, and we sort of started exchanging notes on what's going on and what are people doing. And slowly we started realizing that all the makers in the world were sort of, doing the same thing and were having a similar kind of response to the COVID crisis. Everywhere in the world. So, I mean, now these are case studies which are done, by open source medical supplies. And you can see the kind of response that the makers had across the world was very similar to what we were doing in India. And we got to know about this only much later. And I'll show you what is happening. So anywhere from Germany to Brazil to to Romania, to France, all the makers were actually making PPEs, and that was the first thing that they started doing across the world. But this is what we realized when there was a lot of we did not realize when we were quarantining at the space that there was a massive grave crisis around the PPEs in India. It was number 3 on the government's list, especially the face shields to procure. There was not only dearth of beds and things like that, but the PPE was something that was not being manufactured in India before this. So there was a lot of there was a very grave situation out there, and we were really quite unaware of it at the time. But we because we were in touch with a lot of community outside, and because lockdowns in other parts of the world had started earlier, so the open source community was already working on a lot of things. And because by virtue of being a makerspace, we were already in touch with them, so we sort of started getting a lot of insights and understanding that a lot of people are making these, and we really did not know why are they making these. So we just started prototyping at our space on the 25th of March, and we came up with these laser cut, face shields. You can see Webber wearing these. This was our first design that we made, and we made these out of MDF, which is like, we had some MDF at the space. We laser cut it. I showed you the laser cutting machine earlier, and we created these live hinges. We got a OHP sheet, and we started making these. This at that time, I mean, in terms of the cost, was about 20 rupees, to make one of these face shields. And we basically open sourced this design, and we put this out on GitHub on our platform. And we also posted it on social media. And given that we do have a little bit of a community of makers and, people who are interested in our space, we started getting a lot of calls from doctors and nurses and hospitals, especially in Mumbai, and and these were really calls which were very stressful calls, and at that time we were not really aware. So they were like, we need 1,000 of these, we need 2,000 of these, we need 500 of these in different hospitals, and where can you guys give it to us? So that's when we started realizing that it's going to be, it's something that is required, and maybe because we have access to our tools, maybe we should start making them. But it was just, and remember at that time, it was just the three of us who were there in the lab. So we started with a very modest, objective of making 1,000 of these face shields. But then we started getting these calls, and then, Vaibhav and I were talking, and we were like, 1,000 in India is like, this is not the number that will really work. I mean, if there's a need and if there is a requirement out there, we will need to make at least something more. So we started with a very modest agenda of making 10,000 of these face shields. And we started calling for help. We started calling for volunteers. We really did not know how to sort of progress, because we had the design and we had the know how to make it, but still a very manual process. So you have to assemble it, you have to cut it. So it was not that easy to sort of scale it up very quickly. Although it was a very simple design, it was very low cost design, but still we needed like some help. So we started calling for help. We started calling for volunteers. You can see our post in the initial time that what things needed to be done is to like stick a foam and things like that, and you don't need any technical qualification. And there were a lot of really, really helpful people in Mumbai and the other community. There was I think Project Mumbai, who was working on providing food at that point in time. And they were the first ones who were actually going about to give food to the immigrants who were, stranded, migrant workers who were stranded over there. And they started sort of helping us with some volunteers and things like that. And that's how it sort of started this whole campaign in the first week of March. And you can see that, we sort of went through multiple design iterations in the process of, making these face shields. So if you see on the right, this was the first face shield that we made with, this is a paper prototype of the face shield that we made. And then we progressed into making it with MDF. Then we went at night. We used to go and take user feedback from doctors. And these doctors were, like doing shifts till late in the night. So we used to go at 12 o'clock to their houses to get feedback, change the material. Then we went into acrylic. Then we chanced upon something called the sunboard, which is a very exciting material because one, it's non-porous, so it does not absorb any moisture. And second, it's very readily available all across India, and because they're used in marketing materials like hoardings, etc. And these are really interesting, and they're very lightweight. So we chanced upon the sunboard very, in I think the 6th or the 8th iteration of the design. And that's when we started realizing that maybe, it's important to activate more maker spaces and more people who have access to a laser cutter to create these face shields in local, in local towns and villages where they can be given to the healthcare community directly. But if you see the cycle of the design iteration, we actually went through the whole design thinking process around human-centered design to actually make these into this final version that we have now, which we've progressed much later, but that this is how it looks like at the moment. And remember, at the time when we were doing this, the supply chain was completely choked. So that what I mean to say is that we had a request of 500 face shields coming in from Bangalore, and we were able to only, ship it to them in 4 days because Blue Dart was not working. There was nothing working. We had to actually airship it to them, but still over there when it reached the airport in Bangalore, there was a whole transportation problem. So there was a lot of time lag between the requirement because these were urgent requirements. When you think about face shields now, all of us are using it, but at that point in time, these were primary protective, equipment that was required by healthcare workers, and the time for them to reach from Mumbai to Bangalore was 4 days, and they needed it very urgently. So that's when we realized that it's very important that we think about distributed manufacturing of these face shields and how we could, sort of really accelerate the supply and demand cycle. So that's when we started. That's when we open sourced the design. We actually, open sourced the whole process of how to make it. We had the designs on GitHub, which anybody could access from any part of the world. And if you had access to a laser cutting machine, you can just make it locally as well. And we also sort of gave them the whole, sort of made a whole video, like a very amateur video of how to actually do the whole process, how to clean it, how to sanitize it, and how to actually finally make it and give it to the healthcare workers. And you can see, all of these versions over here on the left. You can see different versions that we sort of kept updating, and there's this whole video around how to, stepwise guide for making the M19 shield. And then we started calling in for people who had access to laser cutting machines and who were really willing to support the healthcare workers. We as part of our community, obviously knew a few makers. So we started activating them and started, sort of reaching out to them saying that, can you guys make these in your towns, or can you make this in your city? And this is the design files. Can you just use them and start doing it? Do you have access to a laser cutter? So it was like a very, and this is all happening in the first week of the lockdown. It's not, when I think about it in retrospect, a product cycle generally is much longer than what we had. In our case, from ideation to prototyping to actually creating the product, it pretty much took us just a week's time. And this was only because we had access to these machines, and we had access to this space, and we had access to this really beautiful open community who was willing to contribute and do things in a much more collaborative way that generally does not happen in most places, right? So you can see this graph of how we sort of progressed from 15 shields on the 29th of March to 1 million shields by the 15th of May. And this was all happening in 49 days, so from 15 to 1 million in 49 days. Although a lot of makers in different parts of the world did do a lot of distributed manufacturing, did make a lot of face shields. But the way that, in India, sort of the way the M19 initiative took place, the scale was just unbelievable, because the pace and the scale at which it started sort of building, it was something that we'd not seen, even the other countries had not seen. And you can see this graph of, this is something one of our volunteers had made. This is a graph of each lab that was producing these face shields. So at the end of it, we had 42 cities, towns, and villages who joined us from different parts of the country to make these same face shields in their towns and villages. And this is the graph of all these 42 labs, which we call the M19 Collective, and their progression. So you can see this yellow line over here is Makers Asylum. And we were consistent. We were like the mothership who was just doing consistently. But you can see these lines over here, the blue one, which has just gone up. So there were people who were making much more than we were, and contributing much more in a much holistic way to this whole initiative. But it just all came together in a way that, people from different parts of the country kept joining and adding to this thing. And what was most beautiful about this was that although we started with the design, but because of this open community sort of coming in, and people were obviously having their own revelation around how to do it faster, better, cheaper. So all of this information was accessible to everybody else in the community as well, at the very instant that it used to pop up in somebody's head. So if I had a hack that was making the process faster, we used to put it down on the platform, and everybody else who was there on it could, actually use it and progress much quicker in terms of the execution than they would have to otherwise do individually, right? Because now there's not only one idea, there are like multiple hacks, and it's just an open space for everyone to, take things from and keep progressing in a much faster manner. So this is how it sort of looked like. And of course, we had everyone joining in from different parts of the world. So just to give you a perspective about what was going on. So it took us 15 days to make the first 100,000 face shields. That time, I think we had a few labs that were there. Then then it took us 7 days to make the next 100,000 face shields. And then at a point toward the end of the initiative, we were making 100,000 face shields a day. So it was, that was the kind of sort of, things, the way that it was progressing and the way that, things were sort of happening. And we had, excuse me, we had a really interdisciplinary group of people from various parts of the country. This is the collective in Mumbai. So we had neurosurgeons, we had Goldman Sachs analysts, we had filmmakers, we had doctors, we had engineers. So it was a really interdisciplinary group, and everybody brought in a different kind of perspective to the table, and really helped progress things much quickly than we would have ever imagined. And that can only happen at a space like this. So, and there were about 300 volunteers from different parts of the country, and you can see all of them over here in the on the screen. And then we also started making other products. So we were getting a lot of requests because children, kids below 5 years of age by WHO are recommended not to wear masks because, it has different kind of implications on them. So we started making these baby shields for these kids. We had a lot of, we distributed these million of these face shields across different parts. They were like BMC Karamcharis to healthcare workers, to police, to traffic police, and to a lot of people from various parts of the ecosystem. So we started making that. But I wanted to sort of stress upon this little idea about why, makerspaces, because of the whole nature of it being open community spaces, what is the difference between closed innovation and open innovation? And just to give you a little bit of a context around why a space like this sort of fosters more innovation than a closed innovation. So if you see in a general, organizational setup or any other place, you would see there is an idea which goes into design, building, testing, analyzing, and there are only marginal improvements because it's in a closed environment, right? So it becomes into a successful solution, but that's how a closed innovation sort of cycle looks like, because it sort of stagnates out of after a successful solution. So there's one idea and there's one successful solution. But what happens when you put the same thing into a open innovation cycle? So you have an idea, and then you have a large community of people who are contributing to this idea. So there is cross collaboration over here. You can see the idea is becoming into a much bigger idea, actually, just by having a conversation with an open community, right? Then when it goes into design, again, these others are contributing to your design. So it's still an open conversation. It's still a collaboration. So your idea is progressing into design stage, building stage, testing phase, and analyzing phase. But at the same time, what is happening is there is a possibility of radical innovation at every stage, because your idea is just not one idea. It's actually a lot of people contributing to that idea, and at every stage, it's becoming a much larger and exciting, cycle of innovation. And what happens at the end of this, open innovation cycle is that it's not only one solution that you have. You might have a possibility of many successful solutions, and hence. The cycle of innovation in the case of an open innovation cycle, it's much faster, it's much broader in the sense of more successful innovation coming out of it, and it's more fruitful in the way that you cross collaborating, you're working with more people, and the possibilities are much more larger than any that as compared to a closed innovation cycle. So I just wanted to sort of emphasize this point over here, because in the case of the face shields as well, we saw the same thing happening. We had an idea, but we had a community which was contributing to that idea. So even in the phase of the design, it went through 21 design iterations, because everybody was contributing to that design, and this is all happening in the cycle of about 7 days since we started with the idea and actually came up with the final product which was supposed to be sort of given out to the healthcare community. And then the testing phase also, we were testing it in an open way, so we're going to healthcare professionals who would contribute to this idea with their insights. Remember, we did not have any certifications. We did not have access to any form of certification at that point in time. How do you really validate your idea, right? So now this is again focused on human-centered design, how you're testing it, you're going. So everyone's contributing to this, and obviously it's leading to a really exciting, successful, multiple solutions, because we not only made the face shields, but we also made other healthcare products, which are open healthcare products, like the baby shields, for example, was a variant of this product. Then I will also show you a few more products that we made. So it became a very exciting way of this. So yeah, so this was another product that we sort of were making. This is called the M19 MAPR. These are active respirators. So these are powered air purifying respirators. What I mean by powered air purifying respirators is that when all of you must be wearing the N95 masks, right? Those are passive respirators. They, just help you sort of, block your face. And there's no flow of fresh air coming into the system. So what happens with most healthcare workers, and what's happening actually with most healthcare workers, is that they are in very stressful environments in the hospitals, right? And where they are basically, they have to wear these PPE suits. Now, air conditioners have been turned off in hospitals because of the fact that it possibly could, sort of let the virus be in the system. There is more contamination because of it, because it's centrally sort of, the air conditioners are there in hospitals. Now, this kind of a device, what it does is that it pumps in fresh air into your hood, basically via positive air pressure. So it makes it very comfortable for a healthcare professional working in a very high risk environment, be safe and also be comfortable when they're doing their work. Because at the end of the day, these healthcare professionals are very burdened with a lot of things that are happening. There's infrastructurally, the support in, government hospitals is very different. There are a lot of patients coming in the early days of COVID. If you see, there was so much, there were a lot of deaths happening. There were a lot of people who were getting hospitalized. Of course, over the period, it's sort of come down now in a way that, the medications are possibly helping, etc. But at that time, the healthcare community was really burdened with a lot of things that were happening. And plus with it, the environment in which they were working was really, very harsh. And these PAPRs are also sustainable in the way that they're recyclable and you can reuse them. So it sort of really is a comfortable way of sort of working in these environments. So a lot of healthcare professionals outside of India have moved to this because there's a lot of cost benefit analysis to this. And we made a very low cost version of this. Generally in the market, something like this is available for, anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 lakh rupees. We made this under 30,000 rupees. And I mean, with further research and development, we are also sort of bringing down to much lesser cost. But all of this could happen only because we had access to a lot of healthcare community who were able to give us feedback around this device. We made this from scratch at the lab in Mumbai. And you can see a lot of, again, prototyping happening, a lot of iterations. You can see the hood being made in different, on the right side of my screen, where we've been progressing into different prototyping. And all of this is happening because it's still an open innovation cycle. It's not a closed innovation cycle, because we're getting inputs from everyone, and a lot of more people are collaborating on this project as well. But I wanted to sort of end this by showing you a little video, and I'll talk about a little bit about our upcoming courses and programs and what we are up to. But just to give you a little bit more insight on what really went down, I'll just play this video for all of you. Yeah. So that was a little bit about what really went down during the time. So giving you guys a little bit of insight on that. But this is what we've been up to. We, of course, on a normal day, we do a lot of programs where we focus around solving for the UN SDGs, where we bring in interdisciplinary groups from across the world. So one of our flagship programs is called the SDG School, which we'll be hosting this year online. Generally, it used to happen either in Mumbai, physically in December, or in Paris in July every year. But this year we're hosting it online, and we're creating a really exciting virtual experience for the program through this really exciting, we're doing a bunch of really fun stuff around the program, but it's a virtual experience. But over the years now, we started this program back in 2016 with the French Embassy in India and UNESCO and our university partners in Paris called CRI. And over the years, although it started as an Indo-French collaboration, now over 4 years, we've had 25 countries participate in the program, so participants from across the world. And the age group of people has been anywhere between 16 to 50 years of age. So it's a very interdisciplinary program. what we focus primarily on in this program is, like I said, to build solutions, tangible solutions, which are focused around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So anywhere between 60 to 70 projects have come out of this program. They've gone into incubation, research, and becoming startups, social enterprises in the last couple of years. So this program is going to be held this year now from the 7th to the 18th of December. And the application process is still open if anyone would be interested to be part of the community to sort of work on the climate crisis and the sustainable development goals as well. So this is something that we've been up to. We've also sort of moved into creating an edtech platform into how to sort of reimagine makerspace in an online world. And there are a lot of these courses that we've been doing online where the kids actually come down to your home and you can do hands-on learning from home, because there's a lot of Zoom fatigue, whatever online, fatigue that happens now in learning. But what we try to sort of create with our courses and catalogs online is that how do we inculcate the idea of making even at home? So all of these hardware tools, etc., that come down to your home sort of make it more exciting. And the sessions are sort of 1:1 and live with flexible scheduling. So because we know that everyone's like super busy these days, so it's so we've sort of made it in a way that it's flexible for people to learn at their own pace and create their own learning journey. Because eventually we do imagine a world where everyone can create their own learning journey in their own personalized manner, and these traditional forms of certification, etc., really don't matter. And the future of learning is going to be way different and way exciting, is what we think, especially from our perspective. And then we've also ventured into sort of making a lot of retail products. So now we've sort of opened up our retail store online, where we've been working on a lot of these products, of course, which started with healthcare. But eventually the idea is to sort of integrate more makers and creators from different parts to work to cross collaborate and create things which could be really exciting for the community at large. So that's what we've been up to. And yes, we also recently moved to Goa. So anytime you guys are in Goa, please give us a shout out. We'd be happy to host you at our space. And that's about it from my end. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you so much, Richa. That was really insightful, and it's super incredible to kind of get a sense of how a space like yours is used so many mediums, like VR to power tools to 3D printing to electronics. It's something basic that we used to learn when we were younger, or a lot of people didn't get a chance, but we get to kind of hone our skills in today's time and bring about some interesting projects that can really change the way small things can create larger impact. So that was really inspirational. Thank you so much. If there are people who are logged in, if you have any questions, please leave them on the chat box on the right side. Right now, we will have Mr. Wilton Pangoria from HP to take you through a glimpse into their amazing laptops and workstations, which will bring you all the ideas that you want to life. So Wilton, please take over from here. And anyone else has questions, please leave them, and we'll quickly wrap this up right after. Thank you.
Thanks, Varun. Thanks for the introduction. So, as Varun mentioned, my name is Wilton Pengoria. I manages the mobile workstation, virtual reality, and data science for HP, including the product management for the mobile workstation and desktop workstation. So, will not take much of your time. Quickly, let me shift to my presentation, and we will going to discuss the product line, the use case scenarios there only. Hold on. So we call it as Z. Z means the ultimate. So Z represent the workstation category within HP. So I manages this category. So let's see quickly the new introductions, or why people trust in HP more. Reason being, we have got a lot of new introduction, a lot of innovation, what we put into the IT field. So if you see the world first single source remote workstation solution during the COVID time, when we all were logged into the homes or remote locations, we were working from home. So we have launched this unique solution which which can enable users or power users remotely to access their desktop or their desktop workstation, which is remotely logged into their offices. So this is the world's single source solution, that is Z Central. Recently, we have also received the Emmy Award for engineering for Z Central. Then we have got highest resolution VR headset among all major vendors. So we are the first one to launch VR headsets with resolution of 2K per eye. So this is very much available in India. Then we have got world's most powerful wearable PC. If you talk about, so you can wear this PC. This has got the complete stack of computing power in it. So the use case scenarios, if you are a motion gaming, if you're into defense, if you're into application development for defense, then this is the right piece for you. Then, as we talked about innovation, there is one more innovation which is very much suited for the creators, for the design artists, for the designers, which is world most advanced color critical display Z27X G2. So this is X means this is Dream Color certified. So this is we have created this monitor in close collaboration with DreamWorks. So real time color production, 2 billion color reproduction, and real time color calibration is possible. Then going to mobility. So now we are all working from work from home. Mobility is the key today. So we have got world's most powerful mobile workstation, which is ZBook Studio 16, which is 15-inch form factor right now. Then world most powerful mobile workstation, which is 17 G6, which can scale up to RTX 5000, which is 16 GB dedicated graphics with 128 GB of RAM. Then world most powerful desktop workstation. So if you are into simulation, if you are into data science, if you are into 4K rendering, if you are into those kind of stuff or special applications, so then you should look for this kind of a device which can scale up to 40 terabyte of storage and 56 core and 96 GB of dedicated graphics. Last but not the least, then we have got the smallest desktop workstation, which is ZBook Mini, mini desktop workstation, which is Z2 Mini G4, which is again scalable to 128 GB, and this is so small that it can mount behind your monitor. So quickly, let's see the AV. So if you are a creator, if you are a field of creativity, color calibration or color is your workflow, and if your workflow involves a lot of scribbling, sketching, then you should look for HP mobile workstations. We are going to talk about that now. So when I say the innovation or HP being the most innovative company, this is the only company which can help you in the entire process of your workflow or entire or different part of your workflows. So from the inception or from the sketching of the initial design by using the HP mobile workstation to developing a prototype and then taking a printout of a prototype using a 3D printer, it has got a complete spectrum of solution to source your complete workflows. So let's quickly talk about the mobile workstation range. What we have, if you on your left, if you see, we have got ZBook Firefly. This is a new introduction in the market. The thinnest and the lightest mobile workstation available, which weighs starting from 1.34 kgs, which is in 14-inch form factor and then 15-inch form factor. So if you are into 2D business, if you are into workflow requires a 2D, then ideally you should look for a ZBook Firefly. Now, if you are into VR content creation, if you're into 3D or 3D rendering or data science, then you should look for the mobile workstation, which is on my right, which is called a ZBook Fury 15 and 17, which are highly scalable, support Xeon class processor, 128 GB of RAM, and so on and so forth. If you are a student or if you are looking for a solution for an entry level 3D, then ideally you should go for ZBook Power, which has got H series processor and scalable as well. But the state of art, if you're looking at a device which is scalable, which has got a power and that suits your 3D rendering, 3D graphics, video content creation, then you should look for a product which is in center, which is called as ZBook Studio and ZBook Create. So this is the new introduction in the portfolio. So if you talk about ZBook Create, this is the mobile workstation first time in commercial offering where you have got a 2080 graphics available. But and Studio ZBook Studio carries a RTX series graphics. Now quickly moving from a mobile workstation to a desktop workstation. In a similar fashion, on my left, if you see design for 3D entering, so 3D entry workflows. So if your workflow has got entry level 3D, you should look for a product like Z2 Mini and Z2 SFF. But if you want a scalable machine, if you are into data science or rendering or advanced visualization, the ideal suited workstation for your workflows is Z6 and Z8. Now, at the same time, if you're a student or if you are entry 3D and looking for a best cost performance, you should look for a product like Z1 and Z2 Tower. But the best selling for creative field or animation or 3D field, the best selling desktop workstation is Z Central 4R and Z4. Z Central 4R, first time we are introducing the product which is a rackable workstation. So it can be racked in the central location. Let's quickly see the AV on ZBook Create. So great product, ZBook Studio and ZBook Create. The first time we are launching a product like this. So this is under 2 kilogram category. I mean, this is where this is where the creatives, or this is where if you are looking for something for color critical applications or something for gaming application or virtual reality application, at the same time should be light in weight. So this is the product you should be looking for. This has got 15.6-inch screen, so big canvas to create a true color. It's 87% screen to body ratio. This is also certified for dream color. The smallest VR ready mobile workstation, world's smallest 15-inch notebook for creation and gaming. Right, it has got all the ports available, whether it is an HDMI port or whether it is USB ports or C docking ports. All the ports are available. Again, the feather in the cap is ZBook Firefly 14, which is the lightest mobile workstation. So this is in 14-inch form factor, the lightest available, 1.34 kgs, and at the same time, the power, since being a mobile workstation, this is a powerhouse. So those who are into collaboration, those who are into mobility, but at the same time has got heavy presentations or heavy audio files or heavy Excel sheets, this is the ideal suited product for them. So when I interact with creators or teams from the creative fields or the students, there is always a confusion. So when they should be using the mobile workstation or ZBook, or when they should be using a notebooks. So if you are someone who are into visual blogging or visual presentation or Microsoft video editor or Microsoft Suite, or someone into graphic design or photography, then you can ideally use both. But if you are someone whose workflows include Cinema 4D, Adobe Substance, After Effects, Premiere Pro, SolidWorks, Autodesk, then mobile workstation should be the product you should be using for your workflow. Otherwise, you are somewhere lagging in your workflow. There is always a confusion or the queries on graphics card. So when to use a GeForce graphics card or what is the difference between a GeForce graphics card and Quadro series graphics card? So, so GeForce graphics card is a consumer grade graphics card. If you are into business of content consumption, that is gamer. If you are audio artist or if you are a video artist, then you can good to go for GeForce. But if you are on a business of content creation, or if you are looking for a device which is a software application certified, which has got a long term time with less failure rates, then ideally product suited for your workflow or for your requirement is Quadro series. Then again, there is a lot of confusion in terms of what is more important for what application, whether it is a core count or core speed or speed or GPU memory or RAM or on different applications. So there's a quick matrix which I've created. So in photography business, if you're using a Lightroom or Photo Studio, Photoshop, right, core count doesn't matter. It's like a core speed which will give you performance on your workflow. Right, at the same time, if you're into videography and you are using Adobe Premiere, core count plays a very important role. Core speed is not that important, so you can trade off between a core number of cores you are buying, at the same time the clock speed. But if you're into 3D modeling, definitely core count is at most important. So this is a quick table which talks about a different metrics on different applications. Now, this is a quick benchmarking which we have done, which is available on public platform as well. A different application performings on different graphics card or different graphic card performing or benchmarks on different applications. So if you see, the black one bars represent MacBook Pro, which house Radeon Pro Vega. The silver or the dark silver color is representing RTX 2060. Silver represent RTX 2070 and gold represent RTX 2080. So if you see the bars of 2080 on different platforms, so for example, Adobe Lightroom, it is 1:1.6. So it is 60 times better than Radeon Pro Vega. But at the same time, if you are using applications like Autodesk Arnold, right, or Lumax, it is 10 times or it is 3.8 times better than Radeon Pro Vega. But at the same time, the cost comparison, if you see, it is very much cost friendly for a user. Quickly coming on ecosystems. So when we are talking from a perspective of the color criticality, or from a creator's perspective, the large screen or the large canvas plays a very important role. And hence, to suit your requirement of workflows, we have got complete solution available on displays starting from 22-inch up to 43-inch. At the same time, we also have a display which we call as a Dream Color certified. As I mentioned, this displays we have created in close collaboration with DreamWorks. So these displays are basically created for the workflows which requires a color criticality. So these are real-time calibrated. These displays can be real-time calibrated on the field. It is 100% SO Adobe RGB certified, and these are stunning. This can reproduce 2 billion color. So this is quick details like this. This supports brilliant 4K 3840 by 2160 resolution. House complete. It has got complete the stack of connectivity like USB-C port, video and power delivery, precise and consistent. So sRGB and PT.709. So this is a complete stack what we have talked about. This is about XP. Thank you so much for being a patient listener. So over to you, Varun, again. Adobe RGB certified, and these are.
Hi guys, thank you so much for spending your time and being patient with us. I hope you liked all the different products that HGAc has to offer. So I think it's a perfect partnership where you guys create and you think of the ideas, and then you have the perfect product for you to enable and bring those ideas to life. We're seeing that there aren't many questions, or rather none at all. So we'll just take up a few quick ones with Richa, and then we'll love to see you guys again at 3 o'clock for Giggling Monkey Mehek session around storytelling using graphic design and many other forms. So please be back at 3, and we'll just close this loop by asking Richa just 1 or 2 questions. So Richa, thank you so much for your session. I wanted to just kind of get a sense.
हेलो
Thank you so much for spending
हाँ
your
मैं
time.
ऑफिस में हूँ
To kind of get started, I think we've been seeing that you guys have been
वो
various
25D जो चेंज हो गया था ना
excuse me, everyone,
वो
whoever has
वाला
on.
लास्ट में डी है
Sorry, guys, just a second. Okay, so just to get started again, really sorry. I think this is part of our digital experiences where there's always someone who's not on mute. So really sorry about that. But just to kind of move ahead, I hope we get to see ourselves physically and we won't have these problems and we just ask people from the stage to ask them to not speak at that time. But until then, one last question, Richa. I think you guys in Vaibhav have been really instrumental in creating new programs in educational learning. And what's really been interesting is that you have democratized various skill-based programs. I had just one question, which I think can also work well for the creators. You've been using 3D a lot for a lot of your work, right? I'm not talking about 3D printing, but VR and stuff of that sort. Could you give us a sense that in the coming years, how can VR help people as young creators? How can it help in maybe education? And what do you think our cities can do for better VR-based experiences? Are there stuff that we can look into the museums? Is there stuff that you think should happen in colleges? What do you think about that, where VR can be used for experiences?
So I think from our perspective, I think we love VR quite a bit, and we've been sort of dabbling our fingers on, getting a hang of what we can do virtually. So, of course, in terms of sort of creating programs and content around learning VR is something that we've been doing now for a couple of years. And what we've seen is we definitely see there's a lot of use cases of the future, especially now, a lot of things. In fact, yesterday itself, we were Weber and I were testing this software where we're trying to host the SDG school on, which is going to happen in December, where it's a very interactive software. It's a virtual setting. And as soon as you get into it, you just have a real feeling of, being physically connected to someone, which is so bizarre because it's a virtual world and it's just, just being on Zoom on a 2D space or whatever, whatever these platforms are, Google Meet, that experience is still not like, up there yet. We still are talking to each other. It's great to have a communication, but to have a real experience, I think the virtual reality space is a very key space to be in. And I think what we've also seen over the years, the way virtual reality is being used in marketing, for example, the way virtual reality is being used to sort of create experiences which are beyond that one can imagine. You just transpose yourself into a different kind of a world. I think use cases from an artist's perspective, we've seen a lot of artists and designers sort of, also learn a lot of VR and content, and presenting their work in the virtual space is becoming very exciting, and now given, the times that we are in, I think the progression of VR is going to be much more accelerated than one would imagine. And we see a lot of exciting use cases from, education. EdTech is becoming more virtual. Education from our perspective EdTech is big now, obviously, like everyone's learning online. But a lot of it that we are seeing in young learners is the fatigue that's happening online. But creating a virtual experience makes that fatigue sort of really go away, because it's super exciting to be in a virtual space because you're not, you're sort of physically there. So definitely EdTech, definitely art, design. Wherever there's communication, I think virtual reality is going to be a big, thing in the future, I think.
Got it. No, thank you so much. I think it was, that's something that we feel that I think with the world being sped up to going digital this year, avenues of expression like VR, AR, etc., are definitely an interesting place. And I'm excited to see what comes out of it, but I'm more excited to see how places and spaces like yours and the creators that are tuning in will come up and use these mediums to create something. So thank you so much, Richa, once again. And thank you so much, everyone who is tuned in. I hope you guys like session number 1. This was about seeing how Individuals, spaces, and collectives can bring about change themselves, where technology is an enabler. Here, the creators and the change makers are you guys, and the enabler for technology is Z by HP. Thank you so much, and see you guys at 3 o'clock for Mehek's session, which teaches you everything about graphic design and all the multi-sensory expression that you might have in your creative head, but to bring it alive in a form of art. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.